Mid-century traditional, mid-century cottage, mid-century colonial? Yes, all of these house styles exist, and one of them might describe your house. I get questions from people all the time saying, I love mid-century, and that's when my house was built, but it's not mid-century modern. What do I do? First, this makes perfect sense. Not every house built today is built in the same style, and not every house built during the decades of the mid-century era was built with the style we now associate with MCM. Just check out this Better Homes and Gardens cover from 1958 for a fun range of variations. Some of these look like exactly what we imagine when we think Jetson's house or The Incredibles, and some of them look very traditional, even though they're still clearly ranches. Many of my mid-century master plan clients and ready-to-remodel students have homes that don't strictly look mid-century modern, and if that describes your house too, you may have been stuck looking for good advice. Most of the advice you find out there that is catering to mid-century style at all assumes that style is mid-century modern. If that's not the case for you, you might feel like you've hit a dead end. You have not. In fact, you've come to exactly the right place. Hi, I'm Della, I'm an architect, and I specialize in designing remodels for mid-century homes of all styles. Now, sometimes that means starting from a house built in a classic mid-century modern style, tuning up the details, adjusting the layout, providing appropriate maintenance suggestions. But sometimes that means putting back mid-century details after a bad modern flip, or adding MCM charm to a house that never had much of it to begin with. To do this, I always follow the same process, my mid-century master plan method, which allows me to study the house as it is, the people that live in it, and the style of home they want, and then test out options, possibilities together to determine what's the right way to go forward in either one big move or a series of smaller phases over time. So if you're looking for help to turn your mid-century something house into an MCM one, I'll walk you through some simple steps to follow for a house in your situation and then point you towards my best resources for taking the next steps after that. So let's talk terms. If your house is mid-century cottage, mid-century colonial, mid-century Victorian, both of those halves matter. The second part is the style, the details, the appearance, the decoration that's been laid over the mid-century home built on a ranch foundation or possibly a split level. But the mid-century part of it, that matters too, because the house is not actually a classic New England salt box or a Victorian or a colonial, despite shutters or gingerbread or white columns out front. A house that is mid-century but not modern is always going to be a little bit of an odd hybrid. Now, it's my personal design philosophy that the best, highest, most logical form for a house built in the mid-century era is to go pretty modern, or at least pretty simple. It's the best match of structure, materials, layout, ethos, and aesthetic. And in just the same way that I would never recommend that a contemporary homeowner today take their mid-century house and try to force it into the style of modern cottage or farmhouse, it's just never going to quite work all the way. I think it was never a perfect fit for any of those houses in the mid-century era to be done up in the decoration of other eras of houses that had come before. Now, does that mean that a house done in gingerbread or with black fake shutters and wrought iron detailing and hammered house numbers is wrong? No, it's not. And if that is your style, if you find that cute, if it appeals to you, go ahead and lean into it. My best advice in that case is go all the way. Make sure the entire house ties together and follows that theme. But since you're here on this channel where I talk about mid-century modern and mid-mod updates for houses of your era, I'm going to assume you're looking for advice to infuse a little mid-century modernity into your otherwise mid-century traditional house. What's going to be specific to you that is different from the broader mid-century master plan method is that you're going to start from a place of editing. You are going to remove pieces from the house, usually just decorative details. Most of the elements that make a house mid-century something are layered onto a house that could otherwise underneath be just like its neighbor that was done in a more mid-century modern or mid-century modest style. So you're going to take off the fake shutters. You're going to plan to substitute the wrought iron house numbers and mailbox with more simple modern versions. You're going to substitute a carriage lamp for a globe style lamp. You're going to make some simple one-to-one changes. So once you've got that edit taken care of, then you can assess what's going on in the house itself. What shapes, what higher or lower parts, what arrangement of windows, what arrangement of interior spaces does it have that lean towards the mid-century modern underneath that have been disguised by some of those unnecessary decorative details from other eras? You might find that you've got a place where there's a window connection between a living room and a patio, but it's just a picture window. This might be a place to substitute sliders and create better flow and have a bit more of a modern, glassy walled effect. Particularly on houses that are trying to be mid-century colonial, for example, they'll have a place where the house is trying to be very symmetrical, but inevitably that symmetry will break down. Notice where that's happening, and then use it to lean into asymmetry, to balance the house rather than matching it, and you'll immediately start to break down what had been an applied formal style and take it into more of the casual style of mid-century modern. Then you can start to add in details that enhance that style. You can put in a slatted screen wall. You can think about a breeze block privacy wall on the exterior. You can create more elements that enhance the things you noticed in your study, and you can add more pieces of mid-century charm borrowed from other contemporary houses from the same era. I had an example of this come up on a recent consult call, a house built in an absolutely mid-century colonial style. Red brick, white siding, black shutters, white columns in pairs flanking the front door. Actually, anytime I see a house with red brick, white siding, and black shutters, I immediately default to the sort of mid-century colonial, even if it's just a very boiled down version, and it is not my favorite style. But there was a lot that this couple could do to change up their house. They reached out because they were about to get the house painted for maintenance reasons, and they were pretty sure that the white siding wasn't their best look. They did not like the mid-century colonial vibe, but they weren't sure even how to name it or certainly what to do about it. Fortunately, we were able to run a pretty simple checklist following a bunch of those elements. Edit. First move, take off the black shutters, and then paint over the white siding. The bright white areas weren't featuring any particularly interesting shapes, so letting them blend with the overall massing of the house by matching them to a paint color sourced from the brick itself would immediately let the house operate more as an interesting shape than a series of little highlighted boxes. Then we stepped back and studied the house. It seemed to have a formal symmetrical entry area, but when you pulled back and looked at the entire house, including its garage, it had a pleasant lean towards the street, one that emphasized entering around and going back towards their favorite area, the pool space, where they invited guests to hang out with the most. So we immediately started to de-emphasize that centrally symmetrical porch and balance it towards the entry area. I didn't want to recommend that they pull out any of the columns supporting the porch because they might have been structural and we were just doing a simple video consult, but they could certainly add another column or a screening element between them so that they didn't have that rigidly symmetrical look. And then we ran a checklist of simple substitutions, replacing faux traditional carriage lamps with modern globes, swagging a pendant light to hang asymmetrically next to the front door, substituting a more mid-century modern front door in a fun color. In the end, it all added up to a few simple substitutions and choices to be made while doing otherwise necessary maintenance. They didn't have to do it all at once. Making each choice one at a time would slowly de-emphasize the colonial nature of the house, and in a few years, the same house with no structural changes is going to feel borderline Usonian, much more mid-century modern than not. You can do the same. The very first thing I'm going to recommend to you in this area is that you hit my free guide to the cornerstones of mid-century style. I have talked about this in a podcast series. I have talked about this, I believe, in a YouTube series. If so, I'll link to it here. I have a free downloadable resource. If you go to midmod-midwest.com/cornerstones, it will walk you through the 4 cornerstones of a mid-mod update. Pulling back to a bigger picture perspective, the mid-century Masterplan method is absolutely going to walk you through everything you need to whatever your house is and deepen its relationship to the mid-century modern. Going through the steps of the Masterplan method, dream, discover, distill. Dreaming will help you make sure that while you're changing the style of the house, you're also improving the way that it works for you. What are the needs your household, your family, you living in the house have that it's not meeting for you yet? Discover is about that study. It's about looking at the house, taking its dimensions, taking photographs of it, seeing if there are any good original mid-century materials that can lean towards modern, any built-ins, any flooring, anything like that you don't have to remove during the edit phase. And then distill is to set your mid-century style. You are going to distill what the word mid-century modern means to you. With those 3 elements out of the way, you can test, draft your possibilities, and finally develop a master plan that's going to help you take all of this through from idea to fruition. The whole master plan method is going to be a great fit for you if this is the situation your house is in and you want to take it from mid-century something to mid-century modern. And I can help you do that in a number of different ways. You might hire us to create a mid-century master plan for you if you'd like my team and I to study your house and your life and come up with a bunch of options in a package that you can choose between in order to move forward. You can also take yourself through the steps of the master plan method by following along in my Ready to Remodel program, which is a self-directed course that takes you through each part of it, augmented with workbooks, templates, and guides, plus gives you access to office hours with me on a monthly basis where you can ask me your questions about how it's going along and how to combat some particular mid-century colonial detail and turn it into something something modern. If you want to start smaller, dip your toes in the water, I'm going to point you toward the same resource I recommended to last week's video, which is the More Than a Mood Board workshop. This is a 2-hour course that'll take you through going from what a visual image of your style is, some Pinterest things you've got, a couple of things you follow on Instagram, and boiling those down, distilling them into the specific material choices that add up, again, to a remodel that looks exactly how you want it to. I'll link to all of those resources below this video. Next up, what to do if your house was built before the mid-century era, but you still want to plan a mid-century update for it. Can you? Yes, you absolutely can. Should you? Maybe. It depends. How will you do it? That's what I'm going to talk about next week. See you then.